Hello again, my friends. Yesterday, Rising, I finished chapter 2. I was so excited after sharing chapter 1 with you all that I was able to just finish up that chapter. So I wanted to just continue and share that with you all. So chapter 2 is called A Dangerous Plan. And there's a little quote from the chapter here at the top. "Where you want to go, my dear children, no soul has ever returned from. There's bravery and then there's stupidity." That's from Archcommander Duke Traywin Landy. 2 months later, Blu and Ellie landed each of their Armstar scout craft on the docks of the Royal Archcommand Mothership, commonly referred to as the Ram. The girls secured their ships, then composed themselves before stepping out onto the landing dock main hub. Ellie smoothed the stray hairs around her sister's face. "Your antennae are flying high today." "Must be the Arcturans. They've been flooding me nonstop with transmissions and data requests." "Ah, yes," Ellie grinned. "They've been pinging me all week, too. Once they got word of our proposal, they knew we would need all the help we can get." "Yes, by the grace of the Christ consciousness, we have their divine loving support of strong allies standing in the golden light of pure love beingness." The girls both closed their eyes in a moment of stillness and gratitude. They both felt their energy body expand to envelop the Ram, embedding into all the energy veins of the mothership, achieving complete harmonization with the entire ship and everyone and everything aboard the miniature planet craft. Once complete, they both opened their eyes and took deep breaths, locked eyes and smiled big while they gave one another heart-soul energy boosts. Then they stood up tall and turned to begin their walk to the command station of Archcommander Duke Traywin Landy. Eyes turned as the two ascended along the long slanted corridor connecting the landing docks to the main sections of the mothership. The girls appeared to float along, the flowing blue silk of their dresses dancing behind them as they made their way towards the grand central stairway. They smiled while acknowledging passing friends and acquaintances with hugs, handshakes, nods, and heartfelt gestures. Most they knew only from the interstellar transmissions Landy and his crew had been beaming out from the Ram. For nearly 2 decades, their crew had been stationed here, riding the inner orbits of the largest stargate of the Orion cluster. The biggest stargate in the galaxy, its wormholes led far and wide throughout territories charted and uncharted. The stargate had remained unknown to most Terrans until Landy and his crew stumbled upon it by the random chance of hearing a plump, purple-haired Andromedan historian and treasure hunter brag about knowing the location of the center of the universe. Landy traded 5 brand new plasma cores in exchange for the coordinates, the largest trade he had ever made for a piece of information, but also the wisest. The crew had quickly mapped out the coordinates and began to devise a plan to visit the location, since all of Landy's crew were born adventurers as he was. Not to mention, this was one of the highest on their list in terms of dream mission, a rare group of cosmonauts who valued discovery and wisdom above all else, willing to risk everything in the pursuit of truth. Knowing the Stargate would be a viper's nest of Ocarda activity upon their arrival, the crew had devised a clever strategy. They propelled a large asteroid towards the wormhole, then cloaked the Ram and landed it onto the big moving rock just before it entered the portal. Quite a challenging maneuver. The crew barely let out a sigh of relief, then whoosh! In the blink of an eye, there they were, on the other side of the wormhole, in an uncharted segment of the galaxy, floating on the merry asteroid, happily continuing its trajectory. Upon arrival in the new sector, the crew immediately went into hiding and stayed there for the next 17 years. They continually used their advanced cloaking mechanisms to shield them. No adventuresome cosmonaut leaves home without them. While literally encapsulating their ship into a pseudo-land formation matching that of the asteroid. They literally turned their ship from being the most advanced expedition vessel in the galaxy to being instead one of the most advanced off-world underground cave colonies, in hopes that by continuing to transmit coded signals back home, they could assist the Intergalactic Alliance of Light to regain control of the Stargate. 3 years prior, dreams were realized when, to everyone's great surprise, out of the blue, the Alliance succeeded and moved their forces in one fell swoop. They had infiltrated the hive mind of the Ocarda warriors, the brainwashed minions of the Queen Maru. While the crew of the Royal Archcommand Mothership had been dreaming of the prophesied day when the big guns would show up, they were surprised themselves when their own territorial feathers were ruffled immediately. The Ram adventurers considered the district to be their control, a right they had secured by betting on Landy's wild Andromedan tip 17 long years ago. The IAL, on the other hand, had their standard operating procedures they were committed to following and weren't too keen on a bunch of rogue inventor explorers trying to pull rank based on arrival date. Hence, the visit from Ellie and Blue, in part a subtle nudge from the Alliance to help smooth things over, a peace offering of sorts. The alignment presented itself when the Starphire sisters were given funding and crew of choice for a chance to run their bold new exploratory mission, but they would need to procure the support of Landy and his team. Their invaluable years of experience in the sector would prove crucial to the girls' success. Luckily, word of the girls' ongoing achievements at the Starlight Academy had reached the Orion colony, so no introductions were needed. Lacking shyness when it comes to research, they had both already become fond of many of Landy's Ram crew. When the girls pored through the data-rich video logs with a fine-tooth comb, watching certain sections repeatedly while taking notes on crucial details of what, until recently, had been enemy territory. This carefully curated knowledge helped the twins demonstrate expert-level knowledge of the sector, thus boosting appeal of their mission among the high-ranking IAL decision-makers. It goes without saying that it had certainly helped that the sisters had been both independently recruited by the Taurian Defense League, and the Taurians had plenty of their own members whose opinions held sway in the High Council sessions of the IAL. One way or another, the mission was going to happen, partially due to the pure lack of crew willing to venture into such unknown territory, combined with the huge potential for trade routes to be established, colonies to be built, and raw materials to be mined. With everything at stake, the IAL was happy to utilize the opportunity to smooth things over with Landy and his crew. Regardless of whether the mission failed or not, they were sure to make inroads into the sector. Lives of intrepid explorers were a given cost of doing business. Landy had proven that when he was assumed dead after abandoning his post as a Starlight Academy instructor, to disappear with a hodgepodge band of explorers and run the most dangerous mission to date. Plus, these folks were typically known for following their will regardless of official orders, and some say the attribute of rebelliousness is even considered a desired trait for such projects of the secretive generational genetic planning sessions. Generations of explorer families had been planned for this prophesied era, and a focus on the soul's immortality was a concept strongly embedded into each of these lineages. Considering the 1,000-year war was finally won, these families were poised to redefine heroism for the population, in that Starlight and other off-world academies had already adjusted their recruitment telefilms, showing reels of adventure and discovery, finally replacing the decades of footage featuring ultra soldiers and battle formations. "Hey, is that you, Jojo?" Ellie called out from across the landing galley to a shaggy brown-haired crew member dressed in oversized navy blue coveralls, his head bent over a landing station console. Jonah looked up and squinted through his hair, grinning a wide smile full of dimples. "Why, Ellie Starphire, you finally made it to our old dusty rock, eh?" Ellie floated over to Jonah, leaving her sister to continue her sales pitch of their mission to the small gathering crowd. Blue's hand gestures were becoming more grand, indicating the dramatic elements involved. The silk fabric swished as she picked up the flowing skirt and held it to the side, as she sat on the console bench. "Watch out there, wouldn't want to get any rock dust on your pretty little captain's dress," Jonah smirked, his hair still in his eyes as he crossed his arms and leaned up against the wall. "It's a future commander's dress, if we're going to be specific. You know, I'm so bored with the captain stuff already." Ellie leaned back on the bench, letting her hand drape listlessly over the bench arm to emphasize the sentiment, trying to keep a straight face while the right corner of her lips slid upwards irresistibly. Jonah rolled his eyes and then stuck his bottom lip out, aiming a long exhale upward to blow the hair from his eyes. Then half of it gently landed back in the same spot. "Humble as always, eh, Captain Starphire?" Ellie couldn't resist herself and stood up, promptly wiping the hair to the side of Jonah's brow. "If you're going to be on my crew, you're going to need to learn to be a little more presentable." Then she swiftly scooped up the folds of fabric again and with a twirl and a swish, promptly sat back down on the bench, this time allowing the corners of her mouth to curve up into a large smile. "Crew? What crew?" Jonah's demeanor shifted as he stood up straight, his arms still crossed as a sign to let Ellie know there was still only so much she could get away with. A typical Landian attitude that they had learned to flex amongst themselves for years, and now, more recently, with the IAL. He could play cute and chit-chat with a hotshot pilot any day, especially one as energetic as Ellie, but mission talk was another thing entirely. If she meant business, he had to hold his own, a skill he had begun to learn at the tender young age of 5, as the youngest member of the intrepid crew who flung themselves aboard an asteroid for a wild ride into the unknown. Jonah's mother, Koanya, and father, Tesho, were two of Treywin's most important sidekicks, so to speak. Their engineering know-how allowed the commander to translate his visions into the reality of their invisible little floating city home. Landy would envision a structural part, do a basic sketch, and explain the function to the couple, as they effortlessly configured the 3D design and began modeling it immediately with the material shapers and integrators. Together, the three of them had single-handedly managed the entire build-out of the rocky structure, with the rest of the crew assembling and adjusting as needed. 5-year-old Jonah would peek out from behind his parents' legs as they worked. Often he would sleep on Tesho's back in a lined pack with silver thread and emerald crystal beadwork. Ellie looked Jonah square in the eyes and dropped her tone. "Blu and I are preparing for the most exciting mission of a lifetime." "Ha! Did you forget who you're talking to? I've already been on it. You've seen the transmissions." Ellie cut him off sharply. "We have to fly through Terabithia to do it." Jonah's expression dropped and his face went pale like he had seen a ghost. "What? I mean, how? You can't be serious." "Serious." Ellie swished the sides of her silk dress to create a gentle rhythm. "You know, Jojo, I don't usually wear this kind of stuff." Jonah squatted down in front of Ellie and grabbed her arms. "Ellie, what are you talking about? You know it's a death trap. You can't really be serious." "Dead serious." Ellie jumped up. She had held back as long as she could. "Things have changed. I know you all here are heroes and whatnot. You want to sit and bask in your glory, get all your rewards and honors. You know what I think? Boring." "You don't understand. What your crew accomplished has opened up the whole galaxy so that Blu and I can finally make it to Thalasia." "Oh, come on. You know it's just a myth." "It's real. I've seen it in my dreams, and so has Blu. We could give a flying flutterbug if anyone believes us." Ellie took a deep breath and tried to reel her emotions back in. She was tired of being caught between the confusion of being congratulated for her accomplishments while not being taken seriously for her plans. Couldn't they trust her based on her past work? She had given everything to make it this far in the IAL, to be able to stand aboard Landy's ship. All this progress, and yet her and Blu were still regularly called crazy for believing in Thalasia. "Maybe this will help you realize one reason why we're so determined." Ellie reached into the side of her swirling skirt and pulled out a milky white sphere and held it in her palm in front of Jonah's face. His eyes narrowed as he focused his gaze intently on the object, studying the intricate details of its inner parts, lightly visible through the translucent outer layer. He traced his finger along two lines, one red, one blue, which twisted and danced around the curvature of the sphere. He craned his neck closer to study the pattern engraved onto what appeared to be a very dense, hard stone. But before he had a chance to discern the pattern, Ellie jumped up from the bench with a swoosh of her skirt. She tossed the ball high into the air, and it began to spin and emit light, reaching its peak and descending back down towards the ground, but at a pace slower than what the ship's gravity generators would have normally allowed for. As it floated down over their heads, Ellie reached her hand upwards, and her body began to lift off the ground towards the sphere. She grasped the ball with both hands, twisted her body to orient towards the high open ceiling of the landing dock galley. Holding the device tightly, Ellie pulled herself up so the sphere was positioned over her heart and started moving towards and away from her chest in a circular motion, like this. Together, the girl and her glowing orb began to traverse a path of curves through the air, bouncing along an invisible trajectory where each curve was exactly half of one perfect circle. Each curve got progressively bigger, the semicircle diameters increasing as Ellie increased the speed of her arm motions. She's actually holding it with two hands like this and moving it like that. There will be graphics someday. Okay, so each curve got progressively bigger, the semicircle diameters increasing as Ellie increased the speed of her arm motions. Heads began to turn as she swooped along the curves, gently twisting her hips and outstretched legs, the dress swirling and trailing behind her in spiralic patterns. Ellie bounced towards where Blue had been engaging some of the other landing crew members. As they started breaking out into cheers and smiles, working crew put their tools down and turned to stare. Ellie slowed her arm motions and followed the small, gentle bounces to land next to Blue and the others, as Jonah rambled over to join them, grinning as he felt the joy which had pervaded the ship over the last few minutes. Never a dull moment with Blu and Ellie, he thought to himself. I told you, Ellie's been quite busy in her workshop, Blu said with a peaceful smile and a regal calmness. She exuded deep emanations of relaxation, an ability which had strengthened considerably ever since the twins had located Thalasia's galactic coordinates. Ellie, let Jordan have a run with it. He's the current head of their fleet maintenance crew and currently advises Landy on the new highest priority field equipment. Jordan extended his hand towards Ellie. Lieutenant Jordan Fairchild at your service, Miss Starphire. Please don't let the stress fool you. It'll be Commander Starphire someday soon, but until then, just call me Ellie. Ellie winked at Jordan. Blu rolled her eyes and chuckled at her sister, then gracefully turned to face Jonah as he walked over with his arms wide open for a hug. My dear Jonah, where have you been, kid? Blu teased playfully, as a gentle blue glow seemed to envelop them both, causing her dress to scintillate pastel rainbow colors. Jonah felt the warm embrace of Blu fill his soul to the brim, a sparkly, tingly, warm feeling. Ellie and Jordan walked over to an empty section of the ship to play with the sphere, and the rest of the crew went back to their work. Parker, Delia, I'll check back with you two later. You know we are counting on you joining us. Blu peppered in one last pitch effort as the pair waved in acknowledgement. She knew she had just located two more key members for their mission. Delia and Parker were a couple of the best fighter pilots IAL had ever trained. Their ability to synchronize movements telepathically meant they had broken all the prior team training obstacle course records. Blu turned to Jonah and grasped his hands. Jonah, this is it. All these years of sharing transmissions while we were at the academy, it's all been leading to this. We found our planet Jonah gently lowered Blu's hands and held his palms together in a prayer position over his heart. For the love of God, Blu, I honestly cannot believe you two are even considering it. Terabithia is a known death zone. I tried to talk to Ellie about it, but do you think her stubborn head would listen to me? Blu, if you had heard the stories told around these parts... Jonah shrugged and let out a sigh. It's time to write a new story, my dear child. At least hear us out by joining the preliminary planning session. Then you will be able to see our vision, and it will make more sense. Things have changed, Jonah. Now with the Intergalactic Alliance of Light here, we can expand our presence to assist with the sharing of our codes of light. You know how important that purpose is to my sister and I. Jonah, we need you on this. All these years have been preparation for this journey. What does Landy say about all this anyway? Jonah furrowed his brow, his eagle eye stare clearing and clarifying Blue's third eye with a single piercing glance. Blue stood upright, straightening her spine as she closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and slowly reopened her eyes as she exhaled. We're meeting with him momentarily. Why do you think we came in person? The IAL is requiring us to get his approval for our first scout run through the Terebinthian Bridge. Their way of showing they respect his success in the sector. Our success. Landy wouldn't have been able to erect a signpost without my parents and the rest of the crew. Of course, you are all brave beyond measure, Jonah. We all know that. But at what point do you stop living in the past and remember we've got the whole universe ahead of us now, waiting to be explored? Don't you want to get out there too? Has Ellie told you what we remote viewed on Thalasia? It's an absolute paradise, a truly magical future vision of Terra. By establishing an outpost there, we can assist Terra to reach new heights with everything we can learn from one another. By helping us, they can better secure their future as we create a harmonious time loop with one another, past and future uniting in this now moment. Jonas stared into the distance, towards the landing dock main viewing area. It was made of transparent aluminum, which made it easy to enjoy the ever-present jeweled sky of the 9th quadrant. He seemed to be captivated by something, squinting his eyes as if he were perplexed. Blue gave Jonah a big hug and whispered, "We'll talk soon. We're here for a few days." Jonah's eyes remained transfixed, but he smiled slightly and nodded. He needed to process what he had just heard, almost as if for the first time he had tapped into the collective consciousness of the Thalassians and their heavenly planet. Blue caught Ellie's glance as she pointed to her wrist and held up her outstretched hand to indicate they had 5 minutes. Jordan was in the air, doing the same circular motions and traversing small arcs through the landing galley. Ellie confirmed with a thumbs up and turned to give Jordan more operational tips. Jordan's wife, Emmeline, an elite starfighter, was standing nearby watching intently as Lieutenant Fairchild gained more agility and grace with his flight patterns. She smiled contentedly as Ellie explained to her the technologies of the sphere and how they generated thrust and directional control. Jordan eventually landed, and the three convened as Ellie covered a few more details, before leaving the couple to practice with the sphere as she joined Blue to finally head to their meeting with Landy. Blue and Ellie passed through the final guard check and adjusted their posture as they began the trek along the long, sloped sky bridge, traversing the distance between the two building installations on either side of a wide valley on what was referred to as the belly of the asteroid. They paused briefly to gaze out the window at the spiky rocks jutting up from the valley floor, admiring the unique diagonal spear shapes with their gently slanting angles. However, they knew their appointment time was quickly approaching, and they enjoyed continuing their gentle stride towards what they knew would be a crucial test to their alliance with Landy and his crew, and their roles in the IAL as ambassadors and bridge builders and future fleet commanders. The two young women approached the large door to Treywin's office, stood up straight. Then Blue reached out and pressed the small silver intercom button. The door immediately buzzed open as Landy was as precise as possible when it came to time accuracy and scheduling. Ellie and Blue calmly opened the door and walked up the 3 stairs to enter the bright, airy office, filled with green plants on shelves and hanging from the high ceiling. While the room was small in terms of floor space, it more than made up for it in vertical height, especially with the multitude of spiral staircases leading up to books and old maps stored on layers and layers of gorgeous wooden shelving. The sisters were transfixed, taking in the entire room, exotic names peeking out from the maps and plant identification labels with languages both known and unknown by the two. Landy emerged from an adjoining room via a small corridor. It's not much, but we do what we can with what we have. Welcome, Blue. Welcome, Ellie. Landy engaged a mild smile and felt his energy harmonize with each sister intentionally. His eagle-eye gaze met each of their soft blue-eyed, watery stares. His eyes spoke of struggle and war, but of discovery and liberation. Their eyes spoke of misty teal and aquamarine tropical rainforest planets, with purple moons and sparkling twin stars. He extended his hand ceremoniously to each. He felt the warmth, strength, and resolve in their handshakes as they slightly bowed and addressed him formally. Each clearly telepathically indicated messages of strength, security, and expansion. The feeling was simultaneously reassuring and unsettling. Landy began to puzzle himself if their trip was about more than a minor exploratory mission, as he had been told by his contacts at the Intergalactic Alliance of Light. As always, I appreciate your tremendous dedication, and am pleased you could make the journey to our little rock out here. Adeline will be delighted to... I am delighted to see you. My, how you two have grown. Adeline's presence lit up the room. She slightly lowered her head, and her smile brightened her face as her own blue eyes sparkled. Blu and Ellie attempted to keep their attitude of formal respect for both, while feelings of love and honor burst forth from their hearts. Though they knew more than Traywin and Adeline did, that the discussion about to come would be a difficult one. So they held a part of themselves ever so slightly in reserve for the moment when they needed iron strength to pierce Landy's preconceptions and to override Adeline's motherly protection instincts. The couple did not have children of their own, but instead had become parents to many. As such, they often flexed their parental muscles when they felt any of the flock had gone astray. What they had yet to realize was that, rather than fear the wolves, these two little lambs had instead grown up to become a pair of wolf tamers. Adeline and the girls moved towards one another and exchanged loving embraces. It's good to see you're finally out from behind your navigation desk, Adeline. Blu flashed a bright smile, and Adeline raised her eyebrows and sighed. Yes, well, piloting the ram is no small job, and it was time Traywin let others take the helm from time to time. Landy expressed a look mixed between relief and exhaustion. Adeline and the crew had begged him rather, to let others steer the asteroid town. The choice was one he still struggled with, though he stuck with the decision and had allowed others to take steering shifts as he had agreed upon. I think Blu could learn a little bit more about what it's like beyond the captain's chair too. Ellie and Adeline grinned at one another as Blu enjoyed the reminder that even though she had reached junior fleet commander status, it's still nice to be teased every once in a while by those who loved her, so that she remembered not to take herself too seriously. Okay, so that's not the end of the chapter, but I'm realizing I wrote the rest of the chapter on this iPad here. So, and I've been reading it from the version I sent to my phone. So I'm gonna need to resend the current version of the book and then finish that chapter for you all the next time. But I hope you are enjoying the first segments, the first writing of the Starphire sisters sci-fi novel that is a work in progress, and it's really been a journey. I mentioned, I think the last time, how it started sort of as a fun game to transmute real world events, and then it started as I continued the story and characters came in. Then I actually would meet people in person that had the same name and similar persona and attributes as the characters. And then actually Traywin's office that I just read, and I'll probably flesh out that description as I continue to write the book, but I actually visited a house in Sedona that was literally it wasn't exactly the same with it didn't have all the maps and spiral staircases, but the room itself was the same structural layout with high ceilings and with big plants and with lots of light coming in. And I sort of walked in and I said, wait, this was the basis of, Traywin Landy's the Archcommand office. So it's pretty wild. So it's, I feel like the exercise of writing a fictional novel, it really does help facilitate and awaken this remembrance that we are writing our own lives every day and seeing the parallels emerge. And I actually did write something at the beginning, like in the prologue, about it being a parallel universe, and that's kind of, I'll have to read that part to you all. I kind of skipped past that, but it is quite fun. Anyway, hope you all are enjoying the journey through space journey. And I definitely have more to share with you all, but I need to save it for another episode because I've got to scurry off to the apothecary and help people find the delightful herbs and magical crystals and lovely little, lots of medicine in that store. It's just a beautiful place to work. It really is a dream job for me. I love it. And we've been doing lots of deep cleaning, put up Christmas lights. So it is just like energetically, and then revitalizing some like massive crystals there. So the energy in this whole space is shifting. And it's really wonderful to get to work with the energy of the space like that, getting essential oil blends and even doing the coffee shop Synergy, the tonic shop on the other side, because they really is one, even though it's two separate shops. We all talk about eventually there's going to be like a archway to connect the two to where you can seamlessly flow between the two. So really fun to be a part of that and receiving so much abundance in so many ways from that, and just so much gratitude to my friend Sierra, who started both Apotheca and Synergy. Really phenomenal. I think it's there's a lot to learn from what she's achieved, and but she is, she's exiting towards another section of her life, and both businesses are currently for sale. So it's definitely a shifting time period, but it's really feeling like, the Seven Heaven project, that was like 2.5 years of my heart and soul, and every penny I had and every ounce of energy I had putting into that home in Florida that is now nourishing a beautiful, amazing, incredible family who's continuing the vision. I feel that, that weight lifted in large part when I had these amazing caretakers come in and help me continue the vision. So it feels really great to hold space for her because I am familiar with that feeling, but this has been at least 7 years of a project with a lot of people who receive abundance from these vessels. She's quite a phenomenal woman. She's also a singer, a musician, and I've thanked her numerous times for these open mic jams that they have still in Synergy. Now there's a more formal open mic, but we still do the jam sessions in the back. And this place really helped me find my voice and really helped me step into my remembrance that I love to sing, and I'm a singer, and my voice is just a big part of who I am, and I really love to make music with others. And so having the opportunity to give back and to be of service in such a special place for me is really an honor, and I want to really uphold that. So that being said, I've got to get dressed for the day and whatnot, and put my essential oils on and sparkle my hair a little bit. But thank you all for listening to the Starphire Sisters as it emerges, and that's totally revitalizing the book so it can continue to be birthed into this reality. Okay, love you all so much. Thank you again for joining the journey, and take care, and we will talk soon. Bye.